Hello, everyone. We just wanted to do a trigger warning at the top of this episode. We did not expect it to get so intense, but it did. So just so you know, there is going to be some talk of sexual assault and the aftermath of that, as well as genital mutilation. This episode may not be for you, but if it is and you find it difficult, just know that, we appreciate you.
Why so mysterious? Just sit down and hang with us. Why so mysterious?
This is Why So Mysterious, the podcast where we attempt to fill the gap between the bodies we have and the lack of knowledge around them,
We're sharing our experiences and answering our own questions
with some help along the way.
to destigmatize tricky, taboo topics.
The triple Ts.
Welcome to part 2 of an episode of Why So Mysterious. I'm Raven,
And I'm Sada.
and today, as promised, we're going to be picking up where we left off in the theme of labiaplasty, but moving on to a different tone, which is just basically genital mutilation.
Yeah.
So today we're talking about Dr. Kellogg.
Yeah. And maybe looking a little bit into why we still hold so much shame over the vulva and why I think this story is actually kind of needed
Mm-hmm.
because why do we have labiaplasties today?
Yeah. Why do they exist?
Why do they exist?
in
Why
2021?
do we trim other than for those that do trim because of the physical side,
Sure.
the chafing, whatever. Why are we so obsessed with
body parts?
body parts?
Be in a certain way.
And being exactly. And not accepting our bodies just for what they are.
Mm-hmm.
And because bodies are fucking awesome. They're beautiful. So
Yeah, let's get into it.
let's do it.
I was talking to a really good friend of mine recently, and I was talking about how we were thinking about doing an episode about labiaplasty. And we were talking about it for a little while, and then she went, "Oh, well, like, do you know about Dr. Kellogg?" And I was like the cornflakes
the
guy?
Dr. Kellogg?
Yeah, and she
Oh,
was
okay.
like, "Oh my God, you need to go and listen to this podcast." And he was actually like really into labiaplasty, and I was like,
Oh.
What?
What?
That's super weird. So
Wasn't he kind of like a really kooky doctor? He had some kind of like commune or something, right?
yeah, we're gonna get into it.
Okay.
So I would like to thank my good friend Lindsay for turning me on to this insane story, and
Okay.
also this podcast that I listen to, which I will plug. So a lot of information for this came from an article in Jezebel called John Harvey Kellogg's Legacy of Serial Sociopathy and Sexual Mutilation, by an author named Therese O'Neill. And she also wrote a book in like 2016, I think, called Unmentionable, The Victorian Lady's Guide to Sex, Marriage, and Manners. And it's a modern day book, and it's just basically like all the outrageous advice and methods and stuff. So I actually would love to get my hands on a copy of that. But and so then the podcast is Behind the Bastards. Do you ever listen to Behind the Bastards? It's a really good podcast where they just like always tackle something in history. They also had Behind the Insurrections after the January 6th
really?
insurrection, where they talked about like successful and unsuccessful insurrection through history. So the it was a 2-parter, Behind the Bastards. The episodes are called Kellogg, the Great American Cum Doctor.
Oh God. Okay.
So here we go. Dr. John Harvey Kellogg pursued ultimate health his entire career. He created cornflakes, as we know. It was part of his intense interest with ultimate health and nutrition.
Okay.
He prescribed regular exercise to maintain good health. And he was also a really early adopter of the importance of gut health.
Interesting.
So I'm just prefacing this all with like, Dr. Kellogg actually had a lot of really good ideas, like very, things that we still use. He was also a very talented surgeon.
Right. Okay.
Everybody knows him because of the cornflakes,
Okay.
even though they weren't technically his cornflakes in the end, which we'll also talk about.
Yeah. The only reference I have of the Dr. Kellogg is the Drunken History
Yes,
episode.
I was going to say, that's actually both of it's one of my favorite drunk history episodes.
It's hilarious. So all I'm picturing is, what is it, Owen Wilson?
Owen Wilson. I feel like it'll make it a lot easier if you just pretend Owen Wilson is dressed up as Dr. Kellogg while I tell you about this. But like, this should have been a drunk history, but it is very intense. So maybe not.
Maybe not.
So yeah, he did some good things.
Yeah.
I didn't know that much about him. I'd seen The Road to Wellville, which is still a very entertaining movie. If anyone would like to see a very dark comedy about his health spa.
Yeah.
But I had no idea. He's actually got some pretty fucked up stuff in his past. So Dr. Kellogg was a Seventh-day Adventist, which is a religion where the day of rest is Saturday, not Sunday. And I don't know a ton about it, but basically it seems like not always, but in this case for sure, like some fundamentalist kind of Christian sect. It has a lot to do with... It's
like similar. I think they're... I'm not gonna make any statements. I don't actually know. The only thing I know is that this is gonna be a really weird aside.
What?
It's like, you know, the dingo ate my baby.
Yeah.
People. Yeah. They were Seventh-day Adventists.
Really?
And apparently, like, they don't. The way that they mourn death is like they accept it because they accept they're going into another like heaven or whatever, and so their mourning is just like different. Like they're not as sad.
So she didn't mourn enough.
And so she didn't mourn enough, and that's why everybody thought she killed her baby. And
I mean, that does make perfect sense because basically,
but then it was proven it was a dingo. But apparently,
was actually a dingo. Yeah,
yeah. But apparently, it really divided the town.
It did. Yeah.
So
I've heard that story, and it's pretty sad. But,
yeah, it is. Anyways,
yeah.
Totally
so they're
sad.
very obsessed with things being pure, things being clean, and avoiding all temptation. That's very much the thing. Because you want to get to heaven. Heaven is the name of the game. Earth is just one step above hell. So anyway, so that's kind of where he was coming from. He did go to actual medical school. He, like I said, was a very talented surgeon, but a lot of his views on medicine were coming from a place of what his personal morals were. So
I'm like, that's not an old-timey doctor thing.
No, it certainly
that's
isn't,
an always doctor thing.
So yeah, he had a lot of opinions, in the whole cleanliness is next to godliness sphere. And he ended up doing a lot of physical and psychological children. Sorry. He ended up doing... Yep. So he ended up doing a lot of physical and psychological damage to mostly children throughout his career.
Fabulous.
So, old John Harvey had an aggressive disdain for basically flavor, the spice of life.
Oh, no.
Everything, literally, like coffee, no. Tobacco, no. Cinnamon, no. Peppermint, no. Any flavor.
Cinnamon's great.
Meat, get out of here. So yeah, he
What?
Yeah, so he also liked sugar. So the reason
he liked sugar?
No.
Oh.
Absolutely not. So
but there's like so much sugar in Kellogg's. Did you know that?
I do. Let me tell you a little bit about how that started. So, like they talk about in the drunk history episode, he started the whole cornflakes cereal thing. Yeah. And then he brought his brother Will over to come and help him get the business going. It seems to me, and the Behind the Bastards people agree with me on this one, is that Will was like the only person in the entire Kellogg's family with like a conscience. Separate from religion.
That's what drunken history also insinuated.
So basically, because Dr. Kellogg was so obsessed with health, this cornflake was just like super plain. It was literally just like dehydrated corn because any flavor could lead to temptation. And then Will was like, hey, this is actually like a really good invention because you can, you don't have to wake up at the crack of dawn and start a fire and get a porridge going for the kids. Yeah. Everybody can just have some cereal. But nobody wants to eat this because it tastes like nothing. So he added sugar. Oh. And his older brother, old John Harvey, was so furious. Oh, shit. And they ended up breaking apart. So another little like business tactic that Will did was Dr. Kellogg didn't pay his the people who worked in making his cereal like very much money. He offered them lower wages, but a stock in the company. So Will, smart guy that he was, he bought a bunch of stocks, and then he ended up taking full control that way.
Yeah,
And
you got to be careful with your businesses out
It's
there.
very true. So it's actually his name on the box.
You know, there's a lot of companies like McDonald's, Tesla.
Oh yeah, where they got
like a
just sort
ton
of
of-
stolen.
Yeah, like a ton of
Yeah.
companies have had that happen.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So it's actually, you know, it's not Dr. Kellogg on the box. It's Kellogg's, and that's
Right.
Will Kellogg, not John Kellogg.
Interesting.
Yeah. So that was cool, and they never reconciled.
Oh, wow.
He could not, and it wasn't even that he stole the company, because he could still serve his own cornflakes in his weird sanitarium. Sanitarium? Yeah, sanitarium. It was that he added sugar.
Sugar. How dare you?
Yeah,
The blasphemy.
He also, later in his life, I read this thing that like, he ended up kind of getting excommunicated from his Seventh-day Adventist community because he got like a little too zealous, and he kind of like verbally assaulted one of the like higher ups because he caught her eating a piece of fried chicken and like couldn't handle it.
You know what is often used for like batter and stuff?
What?
Kellogg's.
That's true.
You can like
yeah.
crunch it all down
It's
and like,
good.
you know?
Yeah. Okay, so
fried chicken.
the worst, most egregious vice of all to Dr. Kellogg was not peppermint, surprise. It was masturbation.
Oh.
And he
was he really into masturbating?
Oh no.
Oh, he was so
No.
against masturbating.
He would never. He would constantly
see.
would tell anyone who listened that he never consummated his marriage.
Wow.
Sex and
I mean,
masturbation.
this guy just sounds really messed up.
Yeah, he would tell like lots of people, like anyone who would listen, that
No sex, no
sex,
masturbation.
Nope. Nobody.
Forget about any happiness.
Like
in
I
your
said,
life.
no flavor, no spice.
Mm-mm.
So he was also looking out for signs of other people masturbating everywhere, and he had a lot of lists
Jesus.
that were like, "This is what you need to look out for to see if you know one of your loved ones, specifically your children, is indulging
Oh God.
in the sinful
God.
activity."
Okay.
So I wrote this kind of anyway. He would wax poetic about watching children as young as 2 place their hands on their genitals, a sign that the toddler was already deficient in morals, possibly from the sins of their parents committed before they were born. So this is what I'm talking about. He's looking for it
God.
everywhere, and like
Ew.
I've seen so many kids just touch their private parts over the
Literally
pants, under
all
the
the
pants.
time.
It's just like a natural
People do it
thing.
all the time.
So
It means literally nothing.
literally nothing. So yeah, Kellogg didn't believe that there was any natural reason that a child would do that, touch their own crotch.
Also, like as an aside,
Mm.
like in an absolutely non-sexual way,
Mm-hmm.
children will touch themselves in a sense because they're just exploring their body.
Yeah.
Like, and there's nothing wrong with that.
They're
There
brand
shouldn't be
new
any
little
shame
people.
around that. They're brand new little people exploring their body, but they're also sometimes doing it totally in public because they don't understand that this is like, you know, as you get older, it's something you do in private. But
And I know it definitely maybe causes parents some embarrassment.
yeah,
And it's something that you need to kind of explain.
yeah,
but
like not at the dinner table.
it's not.
But
It's not.
it's
that
not
bad.
bad.
So yeah, Kellogg didn't believe that there was a natural reason that a child would touch their own crotch region.
Right.
So rather, he basically thought that it came from dark sources such as constipation, bladder infections, general uncleanliness of the organs, or their parents' choice of bedding for them. So Dr. Kellogg believed that soft beds and pillows could make the weak mind of a child excited and entice them into dirty deeds.
It doesn't even make any sense.
If they're too comfortable, they'll
they'll
think
sink into
about-
their wet dreams.
yeah, pretty much. So he believed a
You need to
blanket.
have a terrible sleep to avoid the wet dream.
Dude, he believed a blanket on the floor or a layer
Oh.
of corn husks would suffice
What?
as a sleeping place for everyone, not just kids.
Okay.
Just lie on the ground.
Okay.
Also, fun fact, he was super against dreaming.
What is wrong with this
I'm
person?
telling you, no spice, no flavor, no nothing, no joy.
not
I
anything
just
nice.
kissed the microphone. No joy.
No kissing.
No kissing, nothing, no hand holding. It's like, it's unbelievable how many things he wants people
What would
to
be the
deprive
point
themselves
of life.
to get to heaven.
Just get to heaven already.
All right. He was against dreams, claiming that a clean mind should have a completely suspended consciousness while asleep, and only a disturbed and polluted mind would choose not to be able to control, and actually let's rewind a second, would choose not to be able to control this subconscious action.
Okay.
So you will only dream if you have poor morals, essentially.
Of course you do.
So, oh my God. Another unacceptable spice of life the doctor was not into was reading, specifically for girls. I'm going to read you a quote.
Of course.
Storybooks, romances. I can't not read it in a funny voice. Love tales and religious novels constitute the chief part of the reading matter which American young ladies greedily devour. We have known young ladies still in their teens who have read whole libraries of the most exciting novels. The taste for novel reading is like that of liquor or opium.
Oh my God, this
So
guy
you're a
needs to
drunk junkie if you read anything.
anything. He needs to just go and get to heaven already.
Seriously, it's insane. But yeah, that one was specifically for girls.
Of course.
So the worry was that basically enjoying a story now and again would trigger passion. And the passion would be so great that girls would, and this is also in quotes, discover the fatal secret themselves. So basically they would realize that they had genitals and they might touch them.
Oh gosh.
And we can't have that.
Nope.
So Dr. Kellogg made a list the parents could use, like I said, to identify signs that their child was masturbating. And it included many things, but among them was unusual vaginal discharge, seductive behavior, and bedwetting, as well as at-home strategies to prevent them from doing so. Actually, I need to rewind really quick. So I'm going to go into this list that Dr. Kellogg made to identify signs that their child was masturbating. But I am going to just really quickly say, if you want a very deep dive into the who's, the whys, the wheres, all of that stuff, I do highly recommend this Behind the Bastards. We just simply don't have the time to go through everything, but it's very in-depth. You'll get a full history of the Adventists, and you'll also get some correlations between some of these symptoms and some other things. I'm not going to say what they are. I'll leave the mystery out there. But if you have listened to that episode, maybe you have, I'm not intentionally skipping certain parts of the details here.
Okay.
It's just what's relevant to this.
Okay.
So among some of these symptoms to watch out for was unusual vaginal discharge, seductive behavior in children, specifically little girls. It was like if they're seeming seductive with other little boys, and bedwetting. He wrote a lot of pamphlets and papers that got
like a pamphlet kind of guy.
sent out. Yeah. So with this list, he fully was a pamphlet kind of guy.
Yeah.
With this list was strategies that you could implement at home to find out if your kid was masturbating or deter them from masturbating or stop them from masturbating. So there were things like locking your child's genitals up in essentially a cage. It was like a chastity belt. Yeah.
Okay. Is that like where the chastity belt comes from?
I think the chastity belt was
like
literally
common?
for chastity. This is for not touching yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
But it's the same thing, and it's wild. You can
It's
see
also
some
like you still have to like go to the bathroom and
okay,
stuff.
well, they designed it so that you could still do that. They perforated the metal so that you could pee through the thing.
Ew, that just seems like I feel like it seems so unsanitary.
It's
and
incredibly-
of the times we don't need to make things more unsanitary. There's not a lot of
Perforating-
sanitation happening.
Perforating a metal jock strap and urinating inside of it is a one-way ticket to some kind of an infection. 100%.
100%.
Talk about unusual vaginal
And then
discharge.
wasn't he also saying like UTIs and stuff like that were the things that are like the
Well, it's like like, look, if you get a UTI or something like that and you're itching,
yeah, you're gonna be touching your genitals
100%, yeah.
and then you're just fuck.
So, speaking of touching, the other option was you could tie mittens on their hands before they went to bed. Another thing you could do is...
I'm sorry, you could do a lot with mittens.
You can
Still
do a
on.
lot with mittens for sure.
So I'd vote for that one.
He also said that like they should be on their sides not on their
Hey,
stomachs.
who is watching the children so much? You need to go get work done. Go pluck the
Shit
corn.
to do. So yeah, lay on your side, and then you would take a sheet and you would wrap it around the kid's abdomen and tie a big knot in the back to keep them from being able to roll onto their
What?
back and access their genitals perfectly.
The fuck?
But then it sounds like there should be a knot in the front as well, because he also didn't want you on your stomach where you could like gyrate into the ground.
God, why is he thinking about this so much?
He's thinking about it so hard. And also, I did read, this guy was a little bit before his time, but do you remember?
It's like he's trying to think of all the ways he can masturbate
He's-
without actually masturbating.
He's spending a lot of time thinking about
Yeah.
this. He also was really into our good old friend Anthony Comstock, the chronic
Seminars.
masturbator who
Oh,
put in
right.
the illegal and immoral birth control
right.
rhetoric. So yeah, we talked
Episode
about
is
that in Healthy Vagina, which
Mm.
is excellent. So yeah, if you want a little history on that,
Mhm.
we don't like Anthony Comstock.
No, we do not.
So this is very disturbing. Another thing that you could do is you could catch your child in the act. So the way that Dr. Kellogg detailed, like fully detailed, this is a step-by-step manual essentially.
Oh, God.
To do that is to simply wait a few minutes after the kid's gone to bed, then run in, rip off the covers, and inspect your kid's genitals.
Ew.
So for a boy, it would be
hell?
as easy as seeing whether or not they had an erection.
Mhm.
But for a girl, he recommended a thorough inspection
No.
of the vagina for inflammation and secretions.
Oh, God. This is so gross.
So that's like serious.
I think he just sounds like he was a pedophile.
I don't think he was a pedophile. I think he was just insanely repressed. And, you know, like they said in the title of this Jezebel
There's a
article,
lot of
like
kids.
bit of a sociopath.
Yeah, like this is like gross stuff. I'm like, this dude just sounds like he was obsessively thinking about young people
And purity.
and masturbation. Like,
Yep.
this is so gross.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Sure was. So, yeah, basically the hope with the, you know, tear off the covers
Mhm.
method was that it would shame your kid to stop. So, like, the shame of being caught in the act would
Yeah.
be sufficient to make it
Make it stop.
not happen again. But,
Which I'm sure a lot of people,
well, you'd be pretty
would.
scared.
yeah, you'd
Yeah.
be terrified.
Yeah. You just not masturbate at nighttime anymore.
No. Started doing like crack of dawn.
Yeah. So, but yeah, if that didn't work, there were more drastic measures that he said should be taken.
Oh, God.
So now we have arrived to the part where I'm going to reiterate you should not be eating during this episode. I am just going to say also right off the top here that like as I did, you know, the research into doing this episode and as we talked about doing the labiaplasty episode, I was still kind of saying like, oh, Dr. Kellogg, labiaplasty. No, this is straight up genital mutilation. 100%. This is not a cosmetic thing.
Classified as labiaplasty?
It
or
was classified as clitorectomy and circumcision. So that is the trigger warning. And I am also, just so everyone knows, I'm going to talk about, you know, male parts and female parts because they are both, no one is safe.
No.
I don't know if I want to call it a fun fact, but a fact.
It's a fact.
Circumcision was not common for
Okay.
anyone outside of the Jewish community
Okay.
for ages. It was exclusively done in these communities unless there was a medical intervention that needed to happen, like an infection. Like I
Yeah.
know like a few men who got circumcised like in their 20s because of an infection.
Right.
So that would happen. But it was actually Dr. Kellogg who used this method and kind of popularized circumcision for anyone and to get it done as early as possible to keep your kid from growing up into a masturbator.
Oh.
So one thing he would do for boys is he would circumcise them if they were caught masturbating. So a parent would bring the kid to Dr. Kellogg.
Oh my God.
But also we don't know how many of these procedures took place because like I said, he was doing pamphlets, but he was also writing medical texts. Other doctors were performing these procedures based on his beliefs and
So he
theories.
would just like send people to go to see those doctors?
No, he would perform them, but like
Oh.
he lived in Michigan. If you lived in like New York, there was probably a doctor somewhere in your state who would do this.
Who would do it? Okay.
Yeah, it was common enough, but we have no idea how many people actually experience this.
Oh my God.
So yeah, there was just circumcision, but there was also in more extreme cases, and all of these are kind of rated on how chronic or bad of a masturbator the kid is what the punishment is going to be. So in a more extreme case, that, you know, his version of extreme, the surgeon would essentially give this kid a Prince Albert piercing, the ring through the tip of the penis, but the kid would still have their foreskin. So every time an erection began, it would be so painful because there was a ring in the way of the foreskin. Because you know how when it gets an erection, it comes out of the foreskin, kind of? It would stop it from doing that, and it would... I won't go... You can imagine. So basically, every time that occurred, it would be so painful.
Oh, God. This is just, like, pure mutilation.
This is like...
This is so fucked up.
It's so fucked up. So yeah, you would be careful not to have another one if you had this piercing in place. And sometimes they would do multiple rings on one penis head.
What? Okay, hold on. It's just at the top of the head?
Yeah, like the mushroom and through you're basically near the urethra. And don't play this for your boyfriends. Okay,
so it's piercing at the top.
Piercing at the top or on the sides. So that was basically like the kind of the be-all end-all for boys. But these procedures were also done without anesthetic on the suggestion of Dr. Kellogg, because pain should be connected to punishment.
Oh my God.
And that's in quotes.
Torture.
I don't get, like, it's so wild. I don't even, like, I have no more words for any of this. It's just like, what are you doing, dude? Like,
yeah.
Also, these are children.
These are just children.
Yeah.
And it's like, sorry, to just like aside, I know that this is like a smaller group of people potentially, but like these are the root causes of this shameful world we live in. Why we have so much shame around purity,
sex
and bodies and stuff is like. And so I think it's still, as disgusting as the story is like, it's still good to know that, because it's like, we know he was big enough that we know of him. Oh, yeah. He was not some just small town person that like had just a small ripple effect.
No, he was big in his day.
He was big in his day. So like he would have had lots of people really, really repressed.
Very repressed.
Very
and
repressed.
Also like,
and then like physically forcing people to be repressed. So like, and that's not that long ago.
No, this is like his heyday was like in the late 1800s and like mid 19-teens. And also he had
not that long ago.
So he kind of was the proponent of like big health spas. So it was the term sanatorium, which is like where you go if you're very ill to recuperate. He changed it to sanitarium. I can't remember what the difference is, but basically it's like you go to maintain good health rather than when you're already sick. And people would go and do long stays, and they would eat a buttload of cornflakes, and they would do hydrotherapy because he was really into that. So people were like flocking to this man for medical advice and attention from all over America into Michigan to go to it's called the Battle Creek Sanitarium.
Oh my God.
So yeah, he couldn't have been bigger. He was basically like Dr. Oz, but actually a talented surgeon. Like he actually did have some skill.
Yes,
I'm not so sure Dr. Oz ever did. But yeah, it's like if you think about a famous doctor, Dr. Phil, Dr. Oz, that kind of thing, like that's the level this guy was at. So
it's so fucked up.
Yep. Okay, well,
because literally this is why we have shame around not just him, but like this, because he gets it from somewhere. But it's like
he grew up with this too.
It's literally these kind of things that just have like cemented the shame.
It's not over. It is really not over because now we're going to get to the girls. So again, just to reiterate, anesthetic, not prescribed. So yeah, like I said, this is essentially labiaplasty, but it's not. It's genital mutilation. So again, parents are bringing their kids to see doctors to have these procedures done based on either catching their kid in the act or even just suspecting their kid of masturbating. So the first thing that they would do is they would burn the clitoris with carbolic acid. causing it to blister and callus
No.
so that it lost sensation. And if that didn't solve the problem, then they would do a full clitorectomy and remove the labia minora.
Oh my God.
And this is, again, like in Behind the Bastards and also the Jezebel article, they do talk about one case of a particular 10-year-old girl. If that wasn't worse enough, it does get worse in that episode,
Oh God.
which I'm not going to go into.
No.
But yeah, kids as young as 10.
Fuck.
So, and then also he's never checking up on these patients. Like whenever he writes about doing these procedures, he's like, it was a success because we never heard otherwise.
Oh.
So he never
come
followed
on.
up, and the parents didn't complain.
Yeah, because they're not even allowed to fucking talk about or anything around their genitals. So
No.
fuck no, they're not going to do anything.
This is also, like, if you think about it too, like most of these parents are probably not going directly to some kind of a surgery. So this is you can see the through line here, starting with a blanket on the floor and not on your back, to potentially a cage around your genitals, to your parents scaring you in the night and traumatizing you by inspecting your private parts, to surgery.
Wow.
So,
oh my gosh.
like I said, like we have no idea how many
and
of
we
these
know
things
we
happened.
know that this is by far not the only culture or only time in history that genital mutilation has been.
It's actually, there's an acronym, FGM, female genital mutilation. It is very common in some cultures. I wasn't really going to like touch on that, but it is.
We don't need to. That's like.
But it is serious.
It is serious. It is something that, and it's still being done.
Yeah, it's still quite common in a few places, and it happens in the West. So it's, and it's the same, purity idea, but it's mutilation, plain and simple.
Is. Yeah.
So over children.
Yeah.
This is just a little aside about like kind of clitorectomies in general for that like time. They were actually super common in the mid 1800s. They were considered to actually be like life-saving because of our good old friend hysteria. So what would sometimes happen if a woman went and had a surgery for something completely unrelated, the surgeon would just remove the clitoris because it was viewed as being unneeded.
What?
Yeah. So you wouldn't be asked. They would take it out. And you wouldn't even know. They wouldn't tell you. And so that actually happened quite a bit.
That's so fucked up.
Yeah, and that actually does happen sometimes still in labiaplasties. Like I've listened to a couple podcasts about like botched labiaplasties.
The one thing I didn't actually mention when I was talking about the labiaplasties is something, I want to say this is because it's a cosmetic surgery, you have to pay for it yourself. And therefore, you have to find, or like I'm sure you can go to your GP, ask them to recommend someone. They're just going to recommend someone.
You get a referral.
But for the most part, you can also just book with any clinic. You don't have to have a referral.
No.
You can just call up any old clinic, book a labiaplasty. And it comes out of your pocket. A lot of people want the aesthetics, but they also don't want to pay a lot. So where are they going to go? They're going to go and get it for cheaper somewhere that says they do it just as fine.
Yeah.
But 100%, if you are going to do it, go somewhere, because all of the doctors that I saw like before and after, they said many, 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 many people have botched labiaplasties because they go to doctors that are not
familiar
they
with
don't
the
have enough
vagina?
experience. Yeah, they don't have enough experience. Like one of them, and I saw photos, like there are some photos where you can't tell. There, you don't see any scar. You don't see, it looks totally fine. Those doctors have done 8,000 of those.
Right.
So they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
They're not gonna mess up.
Yeah.
But you're paying for it yourself. So, and a lot of people choose price tag over, paying more for the experience. Anyways, that was an aside. Back to labiaplasty.
But this is how this kind of stuff happens. Like they're not all created equal, and they don't all have your best intentions at heart. And in the 1800s, they really didn't, because they thought it was life-saving to lop it off,
remove it.
So it is important to say that during this time, this wasn't completely embraced as the thing to do, whether
No.
that was a clitorectomy of an adult woman who went in for surgery for something else, or the mutilation of children based on a religious belief. There were actual doctors, gynecologists that were also releasing papers at that time condemning these practices.
Don't do it. Yeah.
So that totally happened. And there was actually one like very respected gynecologist in the States, Charles West, and he wrote basically that if the medical community started lopping off penises, you'd be hearing a lot of outrage.
So fucking true.
So fucking true. It's true. And it's the same thing too with the chamois thing. And it's like, you don't really see a lot of guys going out to get penis reductions because they cycle.
Yeah.
It's not really a thing.
It isn't at all.
So we're pretty much at the end of this harrowing tale, but I did, we'll end it here. By the mid 19-teens, so like, I think like 1910, 1912, pretty much all of these practices were outlawed in the West.
Good.
So it was no longer like a common thing to do. Although like male circumcision did kind of catch on. That's still a thing.
Why do they circumcise?
They circumcise because there is a risk for infection based on whether like how clean it is, and a lot of like genuinely a lot of like young parents, or not young parents, just new parents don't want to deal with the possibility, so they'll just get it done when they're a newborn.
Right.
I've also heard of like mothers who,
I mean, I would hope you'd get it done as a newborn, isn't that more?
Yes,
or
but
did
also if
they
you
say-
leave it on and there's perfectly good, there's really no reason to take it off right away, other than you can't be bothered to deal with it later, where like their 4-year-old would get an infection and then the 4-year-old has to go and get circumcised. Or like I said,
I've known a guy that got one when he was like 13 or something.
Yeah.
And it was like, but it was like a family decision. It wasn't like an infection. It was
did
like
they convert to
yeah,
Judaism?
it was like 3 cousins all went and got.
What?
Yeah, it was like some weird story.
So like a punch card, you get 3 for the price of 2 or something?
Yeah, something. But
Buy one, get one?
one thing he said was like prime puberty. So he was fucking like getting erections all the time.
Okay, well, actually,
and it was terrible.
Yeah. So, oh, well, that sucks. But also,
Because you're healing.
yeah. I
But
didn't
you're
think of that.
waking up every morning with a boner. Yeah. So like, I don't
You're a
know.
morning
I don't
wood.
know what we're talking about labiaplasty, but like I know nothing about circumcision.
I mean, I do think that it should be considered more. I know that they're like Germany's outlawed it.
Really?
Yeah, for anyone who isn't religious, it's considered mutilation, and I don't think we really do talk about that enough. I've
Yeah.
definitely thought about it a lot more in terms of like, what would I do if I had a baby boy?
Yeah.
Would I make that decision? I do think it's worth considering the alternatives, because
Yeah.
also like, I don't know, I don't know if y'all care, but like, there's nothing wrong with foreskins. Like, they're fine.
true,
And
yeah.
I don't know, they make for
I
a
don't
happy
know.
penis a lot of the time. So
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't know.
I don't know.
But yeah, so that was his his stamp on society also,
Wow.
was that became kind of more mainstream. But yeah, so even though these procedures were outlawed, John Harvey Kellogg went to his grave believing that he was right and everyone else was dirty and infected by passions and spiciness.
Oh my god.
Just stayed in his belief that
Mhm.
he just knew what he was doing and it was the right thing to do,
Yeah.
and everyone else was a heathen, I guess.
Heathen. Of course they were.
And
And so you just drove a lot of people into even more shame. And
okay, well, here's the other thing too, is like all this stuff was happening like, in the late 1800s and early 1910s. Everything we know about like intergenerational trauma as well, and just societal trauma, like that shit builds up. You have no idea what the long term well, we kind of do because we're living it.
I think we do. I think we see it now. I think the reason why labiaplasties are growing by 14% every year is because we don't see vulvas.
No,
We don't say the word vulva.
surgeons can't even say the word vulva.
Surgeons can't even say the word vulva. So it's like, how are you supposed to feel normal with your own body if everything, like, I think people, it's like, imagine what a Barbie doll looks like.
Yeah.
It's like, you look at that and you're like, that seems more normal than like what the actual anatomy is.
Just a smooth mound.
Exactly. A smooth mound.
Yeah.
And so it's like, and the root of these things are caused by events 100 years ago, 150 years ago.
Yeah, they
And
inform.
even further, like it's been, and we've talked about so many different times in different decades and different eras where you see the same kind of shame, the same thing. It's like, if we don't educate and break free of it, we're just going to keep continuing. It's just like pile it on to the next
What
generation.
is that, like those who don't know history are doomed to repeat it, kind of?
Yeah,
It's
for
true.
sure.
It's like if you don't talk about it, if no one talks about it, which is the world we've lived in for so long,
Yeah.
then this is, and it's the thing that I was shouting about when I did the Lysol episode, is like, this is the shit that happens.
It is. And that's why shit like Lysol happens.
Yeah.
Because
Which was only
70 years prior
Yeah.
to that, someone was telling them that fucking like any kind of discharge
Odor.
is shameful,
Mhm.
odor, shameful, even just anything, genitalia related is shameful.
Mhm.
And so therefore it just snowballs and snowballs, and next one just picks it up and then does what they think about it to the next generation. Then it just like fucking cycles
just
over and
pack it down.
over. Yeah. Ugh. And just remember, learning all these things can be hard.
Yeah.
But, we want to further educate and just like talk about things that we haven't talked about in the past so we don't fucking repeat history.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah,
Everybody go
for
squat
it.
over a mirror.
Yeah. Go look at your fucking vulvas.
Seriously. All right.
And then, I was going to go gross. I was going to say stick a finger in there if you haven't, but, whatever.
try it out.
You do you.
All right. Thanks for listening.
Okay, bye-bye. Why So Mysterious is hosted by Sara Jonsdottir and Raven McLean. Audio is produced and edited by Sonia Inke. Original music is by Malcolm Holt and Alexis Young.
Check out our website, whysomysterious.com, for more information about this episode and other episodes. You can also email us with questions or topics you'd like to hear us cover on the show at whysomysteriousPod@gmail.com.
Follow us on Instagram at whysomysteriousPod for updates, fun facts, and general outrage. If you're an audio listener, but you'd rather be a voyeur, check us out on YouTube.
If you like the show, tell your friends, and don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. Until next time!